Hello and welcome to Wholesome Mondays, where we deep dive into a story and figure out what works, what doesn't work, break down things like character and plot. Right now we are going through Nancy's Mysterious Letter, book 8 in the series. We are on chapter 10. If you need a refresher, we left off where they were going to Ridgefield to stop the wedding. And so chapter 10 is appropriately called Search for a Bride. If you don't have time to watch the video, you can always catch me on Spotify. The link will be in the description. And without further ado, let's just hop right in to chapter 10. It's starting to snow, Bess remarked, as a few flakes hit the windshield of Nancy's convertible. Before leaving home, she had put the top up because the day was cloudy and raw with a hint of stormy weather. Bess went on, "Oh, I hope it won't be bad. Nancy, does this car have snow tires?" Before Nancy could reply, George spoke up. "Bess, you have so little faith in people. Of course Nancy would have snow tires, and good ones at that." Her cousin defended herself quickly. "After working with Nancy on all the mysteries she's asked us to help her solve, you know even the smartest people can be forgetful sometimes." Nancy laughed. "You girls have driven with me in snowstorms many times. Nevertheless, I promise to be careful. Oh, it's getting to be worse fast." Due to the storm, it took longer to get to Ridgefield than Nancy had hoped, but she was buoyed up by an exciting thought. Soon, she would either come face to face with Edgar Nixon or find out whether or not he was married. When the girls arrived on the outskirts of Ridgefield, the snow was deep. Nancy asked directions to Harrison Street. She found it blocked off by a snow removal machine which had stalled. Nancy turned down a hill and parked near the foot of it. The three girls climbed back up, turned right on Harrison Street, and trudged along the unshoveled sidewalk. Finally, they came to Mrs. Hammer's guest house. By this time, the girls were covered with snow. Before stepping onto the porch, they brushed off what snow they could and stamped their boots. Nancy rang the bell. In a minute, it was answered by a plain-looking woman in her 60s. She looked surprised to see the three callers. "What can I do for you?" she asked. "You lost or just cold?" The girls smiled, and Nancy replied, "We're all right. We had to park on the next street, so we got covered with snow walking up here. Is Mr. Edgar Nixon at home?" "Why, no," Mrs. Hammer answered. "What do you want to see him about?" "When will he be back?" Nancy replied, deliberately evading the woman's question. Mrs. Hammer surveyed her callers from head to toe before saying, "You look like nice, honest young ladies. The answer is that Edgar Nixon moved out this morning." "Oh," the three girls chorused. "Did you know ahead of time he was going?" Nancy queried. "No, I didn't," the woman said. "He never hinted at such a thing. As a matter of fact, he seemed quite happy here. But then, I suppose when you inherit money, you want to move to better quarters." The girls tried not to show their excitement at the statement. Nancy said nonchalantly, "So Edgar inherited some money?" Mrs. Hammer became more talkative. "It's kind of cold for me standing here. Won't you come inside?" Nancy and her friends followed the woman. She led them to her living room, which was cheerful despite the dull day. "Mr. Nixon didn't say where the money was coming from," Mrs. Hammer went on, "but he told me it was a big sum, and now he was going to change his type of work." "What sort of work did he do?" George asked. "That I don't know," the woman replied. "Mr. Nixon was kind of mysterious about his affairs, but I suspect he was in some mail order business. He received lots of letters." Nancy could see her excellent clue fast petering out. No doubt Edgar would have notified the post office already of his change of address. Finally, Nancy asked the question that was uppermost in her mind. Did Edgar Nixon say he was going to be married, Mrs. Hemmer? Not this morning, he didn't, the woman said, but he mentioned it yesterday. I suppose he was pretty excited about it, Nancy remarked, trying hard not to show her rising excitement. Who's the young lady? Mrs. Hemmer said he had not mentioned her name, but I suppose she was the one who came here this morning. The three girls looked at one another. Before they had a chance to ask anything about her, Mrs. Hemmer went on. To tell you the truth, I don't think it was very polite of Mr. Nixon not to introduce her to me. I went to the door and let her in. He came rushing down the stairs with his 2 suitcases and said, "Let's go." Nancy heaved a sigh, but tried not to reveal her great disappointment. I'm sure she's the person we're trying to find. Too bad you didn't learn her name. Can you tell us anything about her? I didn't pay particular attention, Mrs. Hemmer answered. She was tall and all bundled up in fur. I did notice, though, that she spoke with a British accent. Now, there was no doubt in Nancy's mind that the person who had come to the house was Nancy Smith Drew. Her heart sank as she thought that by this time she and Edgar Nixon must be husband and wife. We must go, Nancy said. Thank you for all the time you've given us. She smiled. Don't be surprised if we come back and call on you again. Glad to see you any time, the woman told her. As the girls trudged up the snowy street, Bess said, Do you plan to do any more sleuthing in Ridgefield? I'm going to the town hall and see if Edgar Nixon took out a marriage license, Nancy told her. Through inquiry, she learned that the building was not far away, so the girls decided to walk there. They were told that no marriage license had been issued to the couple. They could have been married almost any place, Bess spoke up. Trying to get that information would be like hunting for a needle in a haystack. Nancy turned back to the clerk and said, Do you have a justice of the peace in this town? Well, yes, we do. He has an office on the 2nd floor. Nancy thanked the clerk and motioned for the girls to follow her up the stairs. The justice of the peace was a short, rotund man with a jolly look. He seemed amused by Nancy's inquiry. She guessed that he was thinking, This girl's disappointed about losing her fiancé and is trying to find out about his elopement with someone else. I haven't married anybody for a month, the justice of the peace said, and never anyone named Edgar Nixon or Nancy Drew. He suggested that one of the clergymen in town might have performed the ceremony. Suppose I give you a list, he said, and you can go around and find out for yourself. He opened a drawer and pulled out a pad. In a few moments he had written out a rather long list. I appreciate this, Nancy said. Because of the storm, I don't think I'll try visiting all these people. The justice of the peace told her there was a pay telephone booth in the main lobby of the building. You'll keep drier if you try calling up instead of going out in the snow. Nancy agreed, thanked the man for his help, and went downstairs with the girls. They pooled their coins and took turns dialing the names on the list. Fortunately, all the men were at home, but said they had not performed any marriage ceremony for a couple of weeks. Furthermore, they had no requests for any during the next week. Nancy completed the last call. Bess remarked, Nancy, you look pretty downcast. This trip in the snow is all for nothing. George tried to cheer up her friend. I have a suggestion. Why don't we go back to Mrs. Hammer's and ask if she would mind our looking for clues in Edgar's room? Nancy thought it was an excellent idea, and once more the girls plowed through the snowy streets to the guest house. You're back, the woman remarked. Wouldn't your car start? To tell the truth, I haven't tried it, Nancy answered. Mrs. Hemmer, it's very important that I locate Edgar Nixon as soon as possible. We girls thought possibly he left some clue to his whereabouts in his room. I don't mind you looking around one bit, the woman said. As a matter of fact, I'm very glad you came back. Several registered letters came in for Mr. Nixon right after you left. Out of force of habit, I signed for them. After the mail carrier left, I realized that I didn't know where to send the letters. Then I suddenly remembered something. Did you tell me before that your name is Nancy Drew and that you come from River Heights? That's right. Did you ever hear of a man named Ira Nixon who lives there? Nancy smiled. He's our mail carrier. As a matter of fact, he's a brother of Edgar. I know that, Mrs. Hemmer said. Maybe you could help me out with these letters. Some time ago, Mr. Nixon said to me, in case of an emergency, get in touch with my brother Ira in River Heights. The three girls were watching Mrs. Hemmer intently. What would she reveal next? The woman went on. If you could just prove to me that you're Nancy Drew from River Heights, I'll give you these letters to take to his brother. Nancy showed her driver's license, but said, Suppose I give you Ira Nixon's telephone number. You can dial it and tell him I'm here. The woman asked Nancy to make the call and she would talk to Ira Nixon. After a short delay, Ira Nixon came on the line. Nancy identified herself, told where she was, and introduced Mrs. Hemmer. You take it now, she said, handing the woman the phone. Mrs. Hemmer told him the story, and he verified the fact that Nancy was really Nancy Drew from River Heights, and that he had known her since she was a little girl. Your brother Edgar has moved away from here, she said. He told me that in an emergency I should get in touch with you. I think these letters should be turned over to you. Shall I give them to Nancy Drew? By all means, the girls heard him reply. Nancy Drew is one of the most reliable persons I've ever met, and she's trying to help me solve a mystery. Mrs. Hemmer, he asked suddenly, you never had any reason to think my brother isn't perfectly honest? Oh, no, the woman answered. He always paid his rent on time and came and went without any trouble to me. Of course, he never told me much about himself, but then it's just as well not to have too much talk between a guest house owner and her roomers. The bundle of letters proved to be too big for Nancy's purse or even coat pocket. Since it had stopped snowing, she decided it would be all right for her to carry them in her hand as far as the car. Before leaving, the three girls searched Edgar's room but found no clues to where he had gone. Finally, they said goodbye to Mrs. Hemmer and hurried down Harrison Street. When they reached the street on which the convertible was parked, Beth suggested it would be easier to walk down the hill in the middle of the street rather than on the sidewalk. They had hardly started when a boy on a sled whizzed around the corner. The next second, he skidded into Nancy. The impact knocked her sprawling into the snow. The bundles of letters flew from her hand and scattered in every direction. And that is the end of chapter 10. I had a feeling that when they started talking about snow at the very beginning, something would happen near the end of the chapter to do with the snow. So I was right. I feel like everyone in this book is very chatty. Like the jeweler, Ira Nixon, Mrs. Skeets, now Mrs. Hemmer, those two ladies near Ira who cleaned up the letters, everyone's very chatty and gossipy. And I feel like there is some truth to that. I feel like it's in part a stereotype a bit, but also there is some truth to that like small town chatter. And I really like the way that you see Nancy Drew taking advantage of that in her investigations. I don't know if anyone watching has ever lived in a small town. I personally have never lived in a small town, but I know people who live in a small town, and I visited people who live in a small town, and let me tell you, the gossip mill that runs through smaller areas is just unbelievable. The things that people talk about, how quickly information passes around, just the willingness of people to just gossip about whatever drama is going on. There's always that like group of people in the small towns that are like that, in my experience. So you see throughout the whole book so far, Nancy takes advantage of that. When she goes to talk to people, she like gives them tidbits of information and she leans into people's curiosity and want to talk about things that they might not necessarily have a chance to talk to other people about. For example, Mrs. Hemmer, if she was caught around town talking about her rumors in this kind of, she might develop some kind of reputation. She doesn't actually say anything bad about Edgar, but you can tell when Nancy's talking to her that she really wants to tell someone about the like weirdness and like how she feels kind of slighted that he would just leave, and how rude he was about not introducing her to his supposed fiance. There's this like need when you feel that way that you want to talk to someone about it, and I find Nancy's very good at leaning in and being that person that people can talk to. And she does it on purpose so that she can find out information to help her further get clues and help her solve these mysteries. It is a tactic that she uses, and I imagine other people in certain professions might use it as well. But I do like how that is something that you consistently see her doing throughout the whole book. It's not something that's used as a tool only when it's convenient. She does it every time she encounters someone. She's like, this person might have information. How can I get them to start talking to tell me what they know? And she's good at it. She's very personable. She's very understanding. She validates people when they're talking to her so they feel comfortable with her and like they want to tell her more. Especially when Mrs. Hemmer talks to her about the letters that showed up for Edgar. She goes one step further and says, I do know Ira. How about you call him and confirm through him directly that he knows me, and you don't just take my word for it. So she's developing this sense of trust with the people she's talking to, and she's willing to prove that she is a trustworthy person. And I feel like in doing that stuff, in being that more honest person, it pays off for her. She ends up getting better clues and good leads to help further her solving the mystery that she's on. And I don't know if you guys noticed, especially like the very, very first sentence, it's starting to snow, Bess remarked. I wonder if anyone else also noticed that perhaps the snow would have something to do later on near the end of the chapter. And we do get that in the boy on a sled who crashes into Nancy and the letters go flying. I'm curious to see if they will just gather up all the letters, because so far when things like this happen, generally nothing actually bad comes from it. Perhaps some of the letters will be wet, but they can just dry them. Do you know what I mean? We are still in a bit of a bind because we're still looking for Edgar Nixon. That makes sense. We're only about halfway through the book. We're still looking for Nancy Smith Drew, I should say. And I should say, you do notice that Nancy tells Mrs. Hemmer that she might come back. She warns her in advance, essentially, like, hey, you might see me again, just FYI, so she doesn't get surprised or like, why are you here again? And then they go to the town hall. They look for marriage license. Very clever, very smart on Nancy's part to check with the town hall to see if Edgar Nixon took out a marriage license, and then going directly to speak to the justice of the peace. Nancy has no qualms just asking to talk to anybody who might be able to help her. And fair, like, what's the worst they're going to say? Nope, sorry, they're busy. No, sorry, you can't talk to that person, or you need to make an appointment or whatever. There's no harm in asking. She always just straight up asks, hey, this is what I need. Can I do this? I mean, that lead also leads nowhere. I love how you see Bess and George kind of trying to cheer her up with other things. We could do this or we could do that. Because Nancy essentially is the one who is the detective and the one really leading them. But they are there as her support. They are there to encourage her and keep her going and give her ideas outside of where her mind is going. And I feel like that's so important, especially when you're feeling discouraged about something, to have your friends and have the people outside be like, hey, hold up. Like, yes, this is disappointing, or yes, this bad thing happened, but here is a different suggestion, or here is some way that I can cheer you up, or we can do this or that or the other, to sort of like bolster their spirits. And I love how Bess and George is that for her, and how they are portrayed like that. And I think that's all I have to say about this chapter. It went by pretty quickly. I feel like the chapter kind of just whooshed on by, and I don't really have much else to say. So I will pass you guys off to End Card Alley, and I will see you all next week. Bye! Hello, this is End Card Alley. Big thank you to all my patrons. Your support gives me the ability to pursue my passions. If you're not sure where to go from here, you can check out one of my other videos. There should even be a suggestion on screen right now. If you want to stay up to date, you can smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. I'm also part of the Arete Media Pantheon. I highly recommend you check them out at the link. They've got something for everyone if you're looking for something new to listen to. If you're a millennial like me, you might enjoy the Goosebumps podcast. There's Broadway, there's movies, there's even Star Trek. And with that, I will see you all in the next video.